Hey everyone, my name is the Theme Park Evangelist. Before I continue any further, if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. Also, go ahead and give this video a like, and please leave a positive comment below. So I'm finally doing my at-home vlog today. I actually meant to do a bunch, and earlier today, I was talking to Kate and Vanita from Polk County, Florida, for a couple of hours, and I was just talking to them about some personal things, and I kept thinking, I got time, and here it is already after 11 o'clock at night. I'm just like, oh my. And got home, and I made myself some dinner, and I was actually about to go upstairs and play a game, and my parents got home, and I was like, well, let me spend some time with them, because, I hadn't seen them much today. And then they end up going to bed early. It was like, okay. So I decided to put on a movie, and movie got done a while ago, and I've been missing Katie, I'll be honest. And I finally admitted it to her too, and told her, my reasonings, which I'm not going to get into that. And Katie admitted to me she's been missing me terribly too. And she did call me out on something. I was like, and she did make me promise something, and it was hard for me to say it, but I said, okay. I will promise right back too, because I get it. So, I've been trying to figure out all day what kind of a home vlog I wanted to do, and finally had one that dawned on me at some point today. And the one that came to my mind was, I've been working for almost 12 years, and I actually decided to do just a vlog on how I got all the jobs that I have ever worked at, from Publix supermarkets all the way to Chick-fil-A, which I am just actually about to start, not next week, but the following week. So this one will just cover how I got the job, and kind of roughly my very first day or so, without going into detail. So hopefully this should take until midnight, if not sooner. So starting with Publix supermarkets, I started applying when I was 15 or 16, somewhere around there. I was in high school at the time. Keep in mind, when I was in high school, I was going to high school in Polk County, Florida, and I kept going into Publix. So keep in mind, back in the day when I was in high school, you had to actually physically go into Publix, and you had to go to a job application center, and you had to go up to a computer, and you would log into your account, and you could check on your status of your application if you hadn't created one already. And if you had not created one within the past 6 months, something like that, then you had to create a new application. That took usually 30 to 45 minutes, give or take, depending on how quick you were, and with how tech savvy I always have been, I usually got done within that time frame. So anyway, I would go in, and every single time I went to Publix, I was always updating my application, and I submitted at least 500 different applications in the time frame that I was wanting to work for Publix. I started applying when I was 14 years old, give or take, and I finally got hired when I was 17 years old. So the story behind that actually is, my mom called me up one day and said, hey, I was talking to one of the ladies here at Winter Haven Christian School, where she used to work, and her husband apparently at the time was the store manager of the Winter Haven Square Publix, and he was willing to hire me. And I was like, sure, why not? So I was done with high school one Thursday evening. So after my mom got done with work, and of course, I don't remember my reasoning, but even though I got done at like 2:30, I just never bothered to change out of my school uniform. So I walked home and I did homework, and my mom got home, and she picked me up, or so, well, not picked me up, but she took me to Winter Haven Square Publix, and we let the customer service staff know, hey, I'm here to see Joe for an interview, and he took me into another room, and I apologized to him right off the bat that I was dressed the way I was. So at the time, I didn't realize that Joe had hired me as a favor to my mother, which was kind of insulting, but I got the job. That's all that matters. So Joe went over the entire spiel of me, and he started me out at $7.75 an hour, if that says anything right there about how much the minimum wage has changed over the years. And I was shocked at the time. I was like, whoa, that's huge. And let's be honest, for a 17-year-old back then, that was a lot of money. And I'm not going to go into it right now, but without going into too much detail, let's just say back then I didn't really have any bills, so it was very easy for me to go and waste my money on things like alcohol, eating out, all that. But anyway, after I got through orientation and all that fun stuff, I did start training, so I was taught about all the art of bagging. Now, trust me, it wasn't something I mastered in a month or even 2 months. It took me a year before I got really good at it, but I spent at least a day or two just going over the entire training process, just like, how to bag groceries properly. I mean, I didn't even think there was a way to bag groceries properly, to be honest with you. And they told me everything there was to know about helping customers out to their cars and everything. I was just like, wow, I never would have guessed that. So after being at Publix for the next 2.5 years, give or take, I did start realizing that I was just not making a lot of money. Like, back then, even though I was being paid weekly, I was making about $150 a week to as high as almost $300 a week. And I mean, obviously, if you do the math, you can figure that out, how much that is in a month. So I started realizing I gotta do something about it. So I looked around for a second job, and I don't remember how I found out, but I found out that they were building a new Steak and Shake in Winter Haven. So this is not the first time this has happened. And they were putting it over by Kay's house, Kay's current house, which is over by a neighborhood called Winterset. And I was like, oh, cool. That way you guys can get an idea of where Kay lives without me telling you guys exactly where Kay lives. And I found out that I had to go into a pizza place in Polk County / Winter Haven called Giovanni's. I'm like, why there? Oh, apparently the owner owns the Steak and Shake. I'm like, okay, well, that's different. So I went into this Giovanni's, and I spoke to the general manager, and he hired me right on the spot. Apparently they were doing this big hiring binge, and it was kind of a weird place. I had never been in there before. It looked around, and I definitely saw a lot of Brooklyn and the facility. They had me come in for orientation a while later, and it was kind of weird being in an abandoned YMCA with a bunch of men and women, or guys and girls really, all dressed up and the steak and shake get up. Um, Orientation was really nothing to sneeze about, so to speak. And then, a while later, I did start my training. So when I first came in for training, I was supposed to have started as a server or host, and they immediately started looking for volunteers to go over the fun department. I was like, okay, well, that sounds cool, so count me in. And um, I did that for about a day or two. I had a guy from corporate that showed me everything there was to know about running the fountain. And, I was really excited. I was like, wow, this is like the coolest thing ever. And then, like, there was literally a day after, like, my first or second day, I don't remember what it was, and they told me they were putting me in dish. And I was like, great. And that's how I met TJ, because TJ was in there by himself. And I knew right off the bat that something was different about TJ than everybody else. And I'm going to leave it at that. So, that career only lasted about a month, and then I quit. That was the worst job I've ever had in my life. The only good thing that came out of that job was TJ. That was it. So I worked at Publix again until 2017. Now keep in mind, from 2014 all the way until 2019, as far as me living in Lake Wales / Polk County, I was also attending Polk State College, and that's another story for another time. And trying to work full-time hours, that was insane. And my dad made the suggestion that I should go work for Walt Disney World at some point. I think it was in 2015. At first, I was like, yeah, you're crazy. But finally, in 2017, I realized I didn't have a choice. I was getting older. I was starting to have more bills. I was starting to have more responsibilities. For crying out loud, I got my first car in 2016, which, of course, comes with a car payment. And, back then I was driving a Ford Focus, which had a $249.86 car payment. I mean, it wasn't a bad car. It was a really nice car. I absolutely love that car. It was very nice for several years. I've driven Katie in it gazillions of times over the past 2 years. I've even let Katie drive it gazillions of times. And I finally decided that I was going to go work for Disney. So the short version behind that is I went over to the Walt Disney World casting company or center, or whatever you want to call it, and I asked them if they were hiring for anything, and they said they were actually hiring for food and beverage and custodial. And I said, well, I definitely don't want to do custodial. And I asked them, are you guys hiring at all for attractions? And they said they were not. And I said, okay. So I said, I'll do culinary or food and beverage. And they said my park would be Hollywood Studios in Echo Lake. And I was like, that's cool. So I ended up going to their orientation, which is called Traditions. I really enjoyed it. I mean, in some ways, I wish I could spend more time in the park, but it is what it is. And then I had to go through some other kind of training. When I first started at Hollywood Studios, they gave me the whole tour of the park, and then, of course, I had to come in some other point. One of the very first things they had me do was a 4-hour long training class just on being allowed to use your alcohol, or being able to serve alcohol. That is one thing I've not been very open about over the past 7 years, is the fact that I did used to be a bartender. And that was one of the things I was hired for at Disney, which is hilarious because they never said that to me when they hired me was I was going to be a bartender. I was like, okay, I had no idea. And I worked at Hollywood Studios for about 5 months, and food and beverage was just not my thing. I mean, there was a lot of really cool things I really loved about being at Hollywood Studios. Obviously, if you want to learn more, watch my Life as a Working Disney Cast Member series. I go over the entire career of my entire Disney career from beginning to end in full detail. So I'm just skimming over everything right now, obviously to save time. And then I went over to Magic Kingdom and I worked over at Tomorrowland Speedway. I did that until August of 2018. I tried to go work over at Test Track. That did not work out. So I was forced to come back to Tomorrowland Speedway. I did that again until November of 2018. And I got cross-trained over on Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin. I almost had the attraction except for one position, but they said they were going to give me a second chance in January of 2019. But at that point, I had already made the dumb decision to go over to Toy Story Land at Hollywood Studios again. So that happened in December of 2018. And I ended up being over at Aliens Swirling Saucers until February 2019. I did actually get the attraction, believe it or not. But the thing is, there was a manager there who had severe prejudice towards people with disabilities. Go figure on that. And my dude literally forced me out of Hollywood Studios and put me in a custodial over at Epcot and basically locked me in for an entire year. And if that's not bad enough, it gets better. He actually said that people with disabilities don't deserve to operate rides. And then he went on further to say that I don't deserve to work at Hollywood Studios ever again. TJ came in later on over the years. This still pertains to this guy, by the way. And TJ started working at Mickey's and Minnie's Runaway Railway. This was years later after this guy got fired, and he came back later on as a manager for the theater district in that area. And he found out about TJ. Now, he's known TJ because TJ and I have been to Toy Story Land thousands of times over the years. And he asked TJ the very first time he officially met him, "Do you know David Dunbar?" And TJ goes, "Yeah, that's my best friend." I hate to say this, even though TJ is not the most honest person in the world, I really do genuinely believe this. Because I know how this guy is. And nothing surprises me with this guy. And honestly, there's enough evidence that proves that that TJ is telling the truth on this one. Excuse me, because how else would TJ have gone from Hollywood Studios to Disney Springs? I mean, seriously. Anyway, he says to TJ, anybody who knows or is related to David Dunbar does not deserve to work at Hollywood Studios. And I was like, excuse me? I wanted to go over there myself and beat the crap out of that guy. How can somebody hate my guts for 5 years? Basically. And I was just like, God help this man. Help this man. So, yeah, that guy is the reason why I left Disney. Because I chose, after I found out how much he hated people with disabilities, to leave. I mean, I left on good terms, don't get me wrong, but that man alone is the reason why I left. And you don't blame me. I'm sure none of you do. Nobody deserves to work for that idiot. End of discussion. I mean, that guy doesn't know anything about me. He hasn't seen me in 5 years. He doesn't know where I live. He doesn't know where I work. Unless he's found me on YouTube recently, he doesn't know what's going on with me. He doesn't. So yeah. Anyway, um, I'm moving to Kentucky in June of 2019, and I first started out working at Kings Island, so I applied online, and they asked me to come in for their job fair, so they put me in this tiny room, and they finally called us all out, and they basically had us do team building stuff. I was like, okay, well, this is just like Legoland, because Jonathan told me all about that, my brother. And only one guy got shot down. Everybody else got the job. So then they took me to a room by myself afterwards and asked me what I would like to do, and it basically narrowed down to me saying, well, I would like to do games and arcades since that's all they basically had available, and I chose to be over in Beast Games. And not even joking, after I got all my paperwork and all that fun stuff done, a massive and severe storm just showed up out of nowhere and forced me to get stuck in there. I mean, I had never seen anything this bad before in this area. I mean, Florida, yes, but this area, I was like, no. And yeah, I'm surprised in the past 5 years I've been living here, I've seen storms get that bad. It's just been more recently lately, which is kind of scary. Um, Orientation was kind of useless. They go over everything so quickly, and they expect you to read the handbook, but they don't tell you to read the handbook. And then when you get in trouble for things, they blame you entirely, and then they write you up for no reason and basically say, well, that was your own fault. And I knew Kings Island was only going to be seasonal anyway, so I was like, whatever. So then I went to, so I found out about Meijer from a close friend that actually lives in Centerville, Ohio. And he took me to his location. And I actually absentmindedly found the Florence location. I found it after going to an interview shortly after I moved here at Aldi's. And I needed to go grocery shopping. I was actually trying to find Walmart, and I actually found Meijer instead. I was like, oh, sweet. So after shopping there twice, I decided to go over there. And one of the times I applied online, and they saw my application. They asked me to come in. Actually, it happened on Wednesday, July 17th. They asked me to come in for an interview. I was in there for 90 minutes, and they hired me on the spot. It was incredible. They hired me as a cashier, but I insisted that they start me off as a utility worker. And they even asked me 3 different times if I was sure that's what I wanted to do. I started out as a utility worker, aka car pusher and restroom cleaner. I worked my way up to the trainer of the department, of the customer service department, let alone I ended up being the official breaker. I literally was almost on top of the customer service department. I was so close to knowing the desk and then becoming a service coordinator. And then I would have easily become a manager. Like, no questions asked. Well, that would have been sick. And I threw it away, but I'll get there eventually. So training is very boring. Everything is done in front of a computer, unfortunately. And they they do a good job, honestly, doing in-person training when you do finally get to that point. But once you get the hang of the job, it's very mundane. It's very monotonous. I wouldn't say it was one of the best jobs I've ever had, but it's not the worst job I've ever had either. And it wasn't the greatest pay, but it was still better than what I was making at Publix. No lie, but it was Publix is still one of the best jobs I've ever had because I'll be honest with you guys, I've made a lot of money from Publix, and I'm not gonna say how I did it either. That's something that you have to develop a strong friendship with me and then find out. So after Meijer, I did finally start with Answers in Genesis. So the long story short behind that job is I have been trying to get in there since 2019, and I actually got myself shut down by just being too honest with them about what went down with Disney. Then I tried to go in again in 2020. COVID happened, and then I went back in 2021, and I actually got hired originally by Jerry Long, which I thought was really neat. So he hired me in culinary. So I started at Mzara's as a buffet line worker and dish cleaner and all that fun stuff. And I ended up going from there to Deck 3 Snacks, which basically you're a snack stand guy. Then I went from there to Deck 2 Snacks, then to Deck 1 Snacks. Then I became the official breaker for all the snack stands, which got me back to Mzara's, which was awesome. And then I ended up working the funnel cake stand next after that. And then I finally went over to guest services, and I learned all 17 positions. I don't remember the order. I just remember I started out as a lobby grader. That's honestly all I remember. And I ended up doing that from March until December. I did meet Katie in August of 2021 while I was still in culinary, but Katie and I didn't start getting interested in each other until March of 2022. And then we started dating in June of 2022 as well. So while I was still at the Ark, of course. And then unfortunately there was an incident that happened between Katie and the Ark, and unfortunately she was removed from the Ark. And that's as far as I'm allowed to say. So Katie ended up going home in November, and I got her a temporary job at Meijer until I could get her something better. And then I started working at the Creation Museum, and within a couple of months, I became friends with Kathy Cole, the manager of photo effects at the Creation Museum. I'm not going to tell you what she looks like, I'm just going to tell you she's the manager of photo effects. Super sweet lady, by the way. And I happened to ask her, are you looking for anybody for photo effects? And she said yes, she actually was. And I got Katie to apply, and Katie got the job that April, so she's officially been with photo effects a year as of this month, actually. But as far as how did I get to the Creation Museum, well, after finding out that Katie got removed, once again, that's as far as I'm going to go with that, I was like, well, there really is no reason for me to be here anymore, because it was just too painful for me to be there. So I was already looking at leaving because I was looking for a full-time opportunity by August of 2022 as it was, because I knew I couldn't be part-time forever. I've been, ever since June or July of 2022, I have been promised full-time, and it's already getting to the 30-minute mark. I'm still not done yet, and I was just not getting anywhere. So summer of 2022 I was offered full-time, never happened. And then August of 2022, I applied for a full-time position in the museum. It never happened. And I was like, okay, now what? So um, the whole incident of Katie happened. But I remembered the museum, and I was like, well, they seem like the most genuine people so far. And they seem like my best bet. So I just decided, since I'm already seasonal, I might as well just transfer over there and pray and hope for the best. And surprisingly, they actually hired me. Or they actually just took me. And I was like, wow, praise God. And I still stayed at the ministry, so it was tough to leave, but honestly, it wasn't as devastating as I thought it would be. It was kind of one of those, um, it was bittersweet things, but that's the best way to put it. So I got over the museum, and my very first day, ironically, was a bus day, and my brother was working that day. It was really neat to be there, and it was just such a different experience when I first got there, and it was overwhelmingly different. Like, it was not the same, and it took me over a year to finally get a pattern. I mean, even last year, it was just so hard for me to get used to the way they did things. And I'm kind of glad that I had last year to break me in, because there was no way I would have been able to handle this year of how much busier it is. But, like, last year definitely had its challenges for sure. And getting to know my coworkers definitely helped out a lot too. And I got to meet some new people as well, which was really nice. But um, the one thing I was not expecting was for Katie and I to, grow stronger in our relationship. And November of 2023, of course, Katie and I got engaged, and I knew that Katie and I could not keep being part-time with benefits. And I was actually originally offered the chance to go full-time in the museum, and I was like so excited, like, wow, that would be amazing. And I stayed optimistic all the way till March, and nothing happened. I even was applying for full-time positions within the ministry all winter, praying and hoping, hey, please God, please give me full-time within the ministry, and nothing happened. And I was getting discouraged, like, what? Like, I didn't want to leave because I was really enjoying what I was doing. But every time I kept getting those paychecks, and I was just barely getting by. I mean, I kept loving what I was doing, but I felt like I was working too hard just to barely make anything to go by, and I'm constantly having to tell my dad, I'll pay you back, I'll pay you back, I'll pay you back, and I feel like I'm just never having enough money to help Katie out, and I can't keep doing this to her because I love her so much and I want to help her out better financially, and I just cannot do it. So, sorry, I need a minute. I finally started looking around for full-time jobs outside of the ministry. I applied for Chick-fil-A again, trust me. Tried to do it in the past when I first moved here, and it didn't work out. But I figured I'd try again 5 years later. And I tried the movie theater again 5 years later. And believe it or not, I had an interview with the movie theater. And I got hired. But I had to tell them no, because they basically told me, send us, your start date. And I had to send them an email apologizing why I couldn't take it. I had an interview with Cracker Barrel, but unfortunately they decided I wasn't worth their time anymore because my schedule wasn't theirs. So they were like, nah. I just felt like that was God's way of saying it wasn't worth your time. And then I had two different interviews with Chick-fil-A. I had one over by the Meijer, and that one actually did go to interview too, but it was the airport that won me over. They hired me within 15 minutes on the phone. And I have never been to this Chick-fil-A at the airport before. I know a guy who actually works there because I actually worked with him at the Ark, and he was a good friend of mine, and still technically is to a point. And I'm very nervous. I haven't worked outside the ministry, goodness, in 3 years. Other than last year for a month for Meijer, but still, it's not something you ever expect to happen. You just don't. You never plan on leaving. Like, for me, I was planning on staying in the ministry for 5 years. That was my goal, was to be with Answers in Genesis for 5 years and work at Publix at the same time. And then eventually grow with Publix and transfer to North Carolina. That was my plan. That is what I wanted to do. And when I found out I had to quit just to go full time outside the ministry, I was devastated. I cried. I really like where I'm working. I love my department. I love my boss. I love Tim. I really like who I'm working for. I really love what I do. I've really fallen in love with the Creation Museum. I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I do, but I do. I really love the environment. I really look forward to coming into work. Don't get me wrong, I've been so tired lately, but that doesn't mean I don't love what I do. If I had to choose between the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter, I'd choose the Creation Museum hands down over the Ark Encounter. It's just a much better environment. It's a much better experience. I love a lot of things about the Ark Encounter, but overall, I would say I love the family-friendly atmosphere of the Creation Museum. I love the gardens better. I love how close it is to home. I get some of my best pictures of the Creation Museum. I mean, I could go on, but the point is, this is not just being done with the Creation Museum. This is not going back to the Ark Encounter. This is being done all together as a ministry. This means if I ever want to go back and visit, I have to get an annual pass. This means I have to turn in all my uniforms, I have to turn in my staff badge, my staff pass, everything. And it's something I never thought I would do. And like one thing I was mentioning is, in some ways this kind of defeats the purpose of moving here. Like, why would I move here? Like, I can move back to Central Florida and get a job at Chick-fil-A at the airport. But the one thing that God has reminded me to stay faithful and focused on is knowing, David, the reason why I'm keeping you here has nothing to do with the ministry anymore. It's to be there for Katie. And that's what it's all about at this point. It doesn't matter what Kay or Vanita or TJ say about Katie. It doesn't matter what my parents say about Katie. It doesn't matter what anybody says about Katie. What matters is what God says about Katie. And the fact that I love her with my whole heart. And that's why I'm willing to stay here. But the thing is, I'm 30 now. And, like I said, I've been working since I was 17. I was single all the time. I was in high school. I didn't have a lot of self-esteem. Here I am. I'm getting ready to marry a young lady who will be turning 31 literally 5 months after I get married to her, if that says anything. And then I will be, let's see here, I turn 31 November, and then when I do get married to her, I will be turning 32 just literally 3 months. I shouldn't say 5 months. I should say 4 months, but still. Anyway, um, I'll be turning 32 3 months before I get married, if that says anything about our ages. So, I don't know if you guys learned anything from me from that YouTube video. I was thinking for my next vlog, I would actually elaborate more about what my college life was like, because I haven't really talked more about that. But that's another story for another time. Until then, I will see you guys in the next vlog. And always remember, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Have a great night. Peace out.